You turn on Chinese TV and then you get into this Disney world where everything is blurred. No tattoos, no revealing dresses, no nude scenes in movies, no drugs, not even smoking, and of course, no sex. Nothing even close to being sexual. People who kiss in public even get scolded. Interestingly enough, if you walk in the streets of Beijing specifically, you may see guys, showing off their beer bellies or spitting in the street. But no kissing. How gross. China seems so asexual that I have never ever seen condom advertisements. But I have heard of one case in 2012 in one of the most modernized cities in China, which is Shenzhen. There was a condom ad in the subway station and it was quickly removed. Well, because if a child eventually sees this ad and asks a parent what is it, how the parents will respond. Remember, no one talks about sex in China. Do you even know how Chinese parents explain to their children how they were born? They tell stories like, oh, we found you in a trash bin, or there was a flood and we rescued you, so lucky you. Yeah, things like that. And there is basically no sex education in China, and there was a famous story just recently. There was a couple, a married couple of 4 years. They couldn't get pregnant, and so they eventually went to the doctor to ask what's the problem, and then the doctor found out that all these 4 years they were having sex in the wrong way. But okay, it's the matter of the two of them, right? But when it gets to sex education and the link to STDs, things are getting serious, and I'm gonna talk more about STDs later in my video, so keep watching. In theory, you can watch porn, but if you save it on your device, then how will you prove it that nobody else has seen it? Because if you allow some other people to see it, then you get detained by the police and get fined. So there was recently a story of one of my friends who is a famous photographer, and he would tell me a story that one of his colleagues in the industry got 13 years in prison. Okay, because we're taking nude pictures of girls who gave consent, and they were selling those pictures. And I guess it was a huge amount of those nude pictures that, they got 13 years. China seems to be really asexual. From the one side, historically, there was Confucianism, right? The code of conduct, which really confined the sexuality of Chinese people and the libido. And from the other side, there is, of course, the era of Mao, the communist regime, which, only praised being asexual, being poor, being hardworking, right? Even during Mao era, being beautiful was even socially unaccepted. You were not accepted to have the long hair or, being feminine in any other way.
When the revolution starts to dictate the style of people's hair, clothes, and shoes, isn't the revolution being trivialized?
But look at the population of China. No sex, really? We might have a stereotypical view of ancient China, but ancient China can teach medieval Europe a thing or two about sex. In Christianity, it was not rare that the women were viewed as some evil force. After all, why are we here on earth? It's all because Eva was seduced by a Satan, right? Or even in Islam, which is my ethnical religion, I mean, the religion I was born with, there was a saying which goes like, oh, the hell is gonna be full with women. Why women? Well, because they seduce men, the right men, right? We are, the problem here, I guess. But in China, a woman is represented as one of the most fundamental energies of yin-yang, specifically the energy yin, the feminine energy. Watch more about yin-yang theory in my previous video. Sex was viewed and still is viewed in traditional Chinese medicine as an expression of yin-yang. If you lack sex, then this may lead to imbalance in your body, and hence it may lead to some health issues. Shunga, which are Japanese erotic pictures, originated from traditional Chinese medicine, all because in traditional Chinese medicine, the pictures of the genital organs were depicted in a very enlarged manner, and this kind of painting served as an inspiration to some Japanese erotic painters. And while doing my research on shunga, I came across one picture which depicted a Japanese soldier raping a Russian woman. On the one hand, I was really disgusted to see that. I was like, what the hell? On the other hand, it just served as some food for thought. It's just like, wow, interesting how, what people were drawing 100 years ago. Like, what were they thinking about? Anyway, let's get back to the topic of shunga in China. Well, shunga, if you also originated from a Chinese very long sentence, but I'll only take one sentence out of it, which is chungong. Chungong is translated, if you translate it literally, it just means the spring palace. Nothing wrong, okay? Spring palace, why not? But the meaning is actually different. It just means pornographic, okay? Spring palace means porn. If you watched my previous videos, you already know that Chinese people are very indirect, and when talking about sex, their language is extremely indirect. So for example, flying on the plane in China means to masturbate. Driving a car means to make some inappropriate sexual jokes. Anything that involves color in it probably has some sexual context, and the specific color yellow means pornographic. And I can continue with the list of those words forever, trust me, just get my point. Chinese language, especially the sexual language, is extremely indirect. So after all, it is true that nobody talks about sex in China, but we have to make one point clear: nobody talks about sex in China directly, but there are some indirect ways, as it turns out. If in the medieval Europe the sex was minimized even in married couples, in China there was abundance of sex. Actually, having more babies meant having more happiness. More babies, more happiness, right? Chinese people were always striving to have, as much footprint as possible, as big family as they can. And I guess they did it pretty well. Look at the population of China after all. And it's quite logical. If you want to have more babies, you should have more wives. And actually, polygamy was legal until 1949, when Mao came to power. I guess Henry VIII was born in the wrong country, because in China, emperors could have as many concubines as they wanted. For example, the Emperor Wu of Dynasty Jin had, according to the legend, 10,000 concubines, and every night when he wanted to decide whom to sleep with, he would let his ram to gallop around his courtyard, and until this ram stops, and at which door the ram stops, at that door he would find the concubine to spend the night with. In the whole history of China, which allegedly lasted for 5,000 years, there was only one emperor who had one wife and no concubines. Yes, only one single emperor. But the problem that he had later on was, of course, with predecessors. All right, after all, you wanted to have as many wives as possible to have as many children as possible, and at that time, the medicine was not that developed, and so on and so forth. So I want want to make one point very clear. I don't want to see any comments being like, oh, it was so great when there was polygamy, blah blah blah, because most of my audience is male. So I want to make one thing very clear. No sane woman, no sane healthy woman would want her man to sleep with other women, all right? As well as you probably don't want your woman to sleep with a bunch of other guys, all right? In the past, having as many wives as possible was sometimes a necessity, because some women even could die when, you know, giving a birth, or, you know, most of the children could die after all. So that is why a lot of wealthy men would have a lot of, you know, wives and concubines. But we should not ignore the fact that, you know, the majority of population only had one wife, because how the hell can you afford having 2 wives, 3 wives, 10 wives, etc.? And just imagine for a second having 10 women, at least 10 women waiting for you in the house. Not only you have to feed them, but you also have to satisfy them. That's why in ancient China, sex was literally studied. There were, you know, different poses, different sexual poses, different sexual medicines to boost your sexuality, to boost your libido, to make you potent. Even this Emperor Wu of Di, which I mentioned, who had 10,000 concubines, he was being praised for such a high potency. So this was something that the man always desired, you know, always aimed for, you know, the high potency. And there were even different sex toys. If you read some ancient Chinese literature, you would see, you know, some Chinese ancient poets describing in detail the sexual act of a married couple, how they would, you know, even buy some toys, some sex toys in the market. And yeah, it was really like an open trade of sex toys in China. So basically the scenes that you can see on Pornhub, or which are even banned on Pornhub, you can see in Chinese ancient paintings, or even you can find in Chinese ancient literature with very detailed description. And people were reading that literature not only just to, you know, satisfy themselves, to fly on the plane or something like this. No, they were reading it with a more scientific, you know, purposes. They wanted to improve their sexual skills, let's say, because in sex in China, both parties have to enjoy it. And the best thing, if you reach orgasm together, he pulls the energy of yang and she pulls the energy of yin. Passive energy is just an expression of yin energy, because the woman is yin, which represents yin energy, has to be feminine and has to be passive, whereas the man, who represents the yang energy, has to be the one who is the active one. But okay, let's not ignore the period of Cultural Revolution, during which even parents were reporting their children and the children were reporting their parents. And the most, you know, the easiest reason to report for was sexual promiscuity. It was the time when everything about love was banned. The literature about love was banned, the songs about love was banned, anything and everything related to love and sex. And at that time, the women who were being reported for, you know, promiscuous behavior, whether it was there or not, they were basically being beaten, they were being scolded, they were being spit on, until they would eventually, yes, tell that, yeah, I am the dirty one, yes. And the Hongwei Bing are basically the red guards, yes. They would hang some really dirty boots on their shoulders and would walk them in the streets to show to other people that these women are dirty, these women are used, yeah, basically like this. It was really the time of the biggest sexual repressions, but as we all know, quite frequently those repressions lead to some unwanted results. And so during the Cultural Revolution, nobody was receiving education, and so the younger population, the students, the schoolboys and schoolgirls, they started to travel across China to exchange their cultural ideas. And from August 66 until October 66, there were 10 million of Hongwei beings who would travel across China. And after those 3 months of retreat trips, yes, they sometimes those girls would come back pregnant. Soon enough, Mao Zedong was really tired of those passionate youngsters, and in 1968 there started a new campaign, Shangshan Xiaxiang, which is basically, the meaning was to send those youngsters back to the villages in the attempt to re-educate, to calm their passion down. But by no means do I want to say that Chinese society is promiscuous or there is a sexual freedom, in China. No, don't get me wrong, okay? Chinese society, by definition, is conservative. For example, recently there was a huge backlash, a huge conflict, okay, because one K-pop idol, which Chinese young people look up to, is going to perform in Crazy Horse in Paris. Crazy Horse is basically a famous strip club. So what she is gonna do, she's gonna perform naked, right, in front of her audience, but her audience is mostly underage girls, all right? So, and the Chinese society is really worried which impact this action might have on the youth. And what do I think about it? Because you guys often ask about my own opinion, right, on the on what's going on. I'm indifferent. Honestly, I'm super indifferent. I'm like, okay, I don't really care. Whatever she does, she can do. Yes, we are living in the free society, but I am more on the side of the Chinese people, because I do think, that, in China, indeed, those underage girls follow their every move. So I do think it has a big impact on the Chinese youth, and this impact would be probably not so good. I just want to mention the fact that stars here, their private life is not their private life at all, just like in any other country, but in China it takes another form, another level. For example, there was a scandal, not so recently, but there was basically a genius pianist, yes, and it turned out he had a prostitute in his house, and so for that, his career was doomed, yes. Even though he's genius, he's talented, but no longer can he have a good career just because he has bad moral values, or so they say. In other words, being a public person here in China, not only you should have a talent, but you should also be morally okay. You know what I mean? You have to be, you are the person people look up to, and so the government tracks this kind of people, because they are afraid that those idols, those pop stars may have a bad impact on the society. Actually, you probably didn't know, but rappers here have really, really bad reputation. You know why? Because they have tattoos. Tattoo means that you are a bad person. You're probably, you have no morality. It was really a shock for me to know about it, but yeah, rappers are not respected here. Rappers are being viewed as something really, really low. But at the same time, having this, you open Chinese TikTok and then you see girls literally seeking for clients. You know what I mean? Like, you see it often on the videos, those live broadcasters, yes, they receive huge gifts, etc., and then they sleep with those who give them gifts, and the gifts can vary up until 500,000 RMB, which is around $10,000, just a gift. $10,000, just a gift to an online personality, maybe to to have a chance to meet her and to sleep with her. In Chinese DouYIn, in Chinese other live streaming platforms, you are not allowed to show any of your cleavage or anything, any naked part of your body, but at the same time Chinese still find their ways to be sexual. Even when they wear anything, they can be covered from the head to toe, but still it may look really, really sexual. And now let's talk about the body count in China, because I have met this comment under one of my videos saying that the body count in China is 2 to 3, which is actually kind of true. I also saw it on some websites that the body count in China is low, but remember, it's just because the Chinese society is conservative. After all, nobody follows your every step. I may say my body count is 100, or I may say my body count is 10 or 1. How can you check it? Well, literally, how can you check it? I will say the number which is accepted by the society in where I live. And in China, this number is 2 to 3. Because the Chinese society, after all, is a conservative one. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the video about the lack of sex education, just like in Russia, there is no sex education in China, and so guys sometimes refuse to wear a condom, just saying that it's really uncomfortable and okay, don't worry, you're not gonna get pregnant anyway. Literally, people don't know the word chlamydia. Okay, they don't know, even if you say in Chinese or in whichever language, they simply don't know it exists. The most important thing is, you don't have HIV or you don't have syphilis, all these blood infections, and it's already good. But they don't know other, like small infections, which aren't really small, which can lead to really serious health issues. I don't know the statistics here in China, but just a warning for you guys that that this exists. Okay, people sometimes avoid wearing condoms. Again, I mentioned this STD fact not for entertainment purposes. Okay, I mentioned this for your safety purpose, all right, because I have seen this kind of behavior also in the videos of foreigners who live in Korea, because this is happening, I feel like, all around Asia, and in Russia also same thing. It's like okay, the guy is saying, okay, I'm not gonna wear a condom. Today is you just finished your period, or you just started your period is about to start, so there is no chance you're gonna get pregnant. Oh, come on, let's do it. Okay, just be careful, all right, guys, I warned you. Now, your favorite, relationships with foreigners, but now I'm gonna talk about sex with foreigners, all right? Basically, Chinese people are curious. Some Chinese people are curious. I'm not overgeneralizing, okay, as some of you mentioned in the video, but they can be curious. But after all, they prefer Asians, okay, they prefer this yin-yang thing that I mentioned before. The man has to be active and the woman should be passive. There's literally, it's really, really rare that a guy would want a really active girl, or a girl who, is kind of showing any, interest in the guy. She should be passive, all right? She should be passive. And not only this, God, I hope nobody hears me. Not only this, some guys, most of the guys prefer girls who act like underage girls. Underage girls, the desire to have sex with them is really high, but it's prohibited. So girls just imitate, like in sex, like imitate a 13-year-old or even a 5-year-old, Things like this happen on, I'm not overgeneralizing, this is something I think quite normal, that, a guy expects a girl to behave in a childlike manner. What do I think about it? I don't think anything about it. I think about it indifferently. As long as it is legal, why not? As long as it is legal. As for the men, I heard that some Chinese women even pay men, even pay foreign men to sleep with them. This is not a joke. I literally heard too many stories like this, you know, and I even heard like one of my black friends. Oh my God, I hope we are being private here, but yeah, he would say that, you know, he was invited to have a kind of a show, I don't know, a sexual show, a sexual act with four women. They paid him. I was like, wow, really? What the hell? But again, I'm being indifferent. That's not my matter. As long as it is legal, I don't care. Anyway, if you want to know more about Chinese dating culture, go watch my previous video about it, and see you there. Bye bye.